And good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode of Think and Grow Rich. How do you access your imagination? How do you connect to the secret links that stimuli creates in your imagination? Good morning. My name is McNeill, and I am the master wealth builder, helping to build stronger and better lives and businesses. And I'm very excited today to come again to you talking about, yes, my favorite subject, the mind. And how do you actually activate your mind with the power and the intention of your imagination? Today, we're going to do something a little different. Of course, I am solo today. For many of you that have joined us in the past, you know we have a special guest. Well, I'm that special guest today. And we also have oftentimes many of our co-hosts. And today, our co-hosts are out. And so with that thought in mind, I am going to share with you the principle of imagination. But I'm going to ask you to walk with me through this principle. Yes, walk with me through this principle, literally every single step of this principle. We're going to read. And so, if you have your book, yes, if you have your book, I'll give you a moment. Good morning, Diane, Wyman, Laura. And as you can see, this is Ann McNeill today, live and in person, discussing the principle of imagination. So if you have any questions, please, hi, Jennifer and Shannon. Yes, I'm going to ask you to walk with me today through this principle, and we're going to discuss line by line, precept upon precept, just you and just me. Yes. So let's get started. Now, you have your copy, whichever version you have is okay. It doesn't matter. They're basically all the same. I'd like to start off by really delving into this question that Napoleon Hill asked us when he says, how do you activate your mind and your imagination as relates to connecting your desire to the activities of your mind that would generate ideas? Sit on that for one moment. How do you activate your mind? Imagination, and minds has an S on it. Yes, there are a lot of minds. Yes, your spirit is a mind, your cells in your body has a mind, your imagination has a, yes, there are many, many, many minds, but that's another podcast for another day. All right. But let's go on to share what Napoleon Hill says. He says that the imagination is literally a workshop wherein are fashioned all plans created by man. The impulse, the desire is given shape, form, and action through the aid of the imaginative faculty of your mind. Now, it has been said that a man can create anything that he can imagine. And as I began to prepare for this, excuse me, this conversation, this masterclass today, I saw something that I never really saw before. And if you would go to this paragraph and just, I'll give you a moment if you're just joining me. This is Ann McNeill, the Master Builder. We're talking about the power of your imagination and how do you actually utilize your imagination to achieve your goals. That's what our discussion is about today. But this is what I saw, and Wyman, you can appreciate this. This is what I saw, and I've never saw it before. I'd like for you to take a pen or highlighter if you have one, and I want you to circle or highlight or underline every time you see this word. And I'll pull my book out because I actually have done just that in my tattered copy of this book. And the word is faculty. So if you drop down to the paragraph when Napoleon Hill says, through the aid of his imaginative faculty, man has discovered and harnessed more of nature's forces during the past 50 years than during any entire history of the human race. But I want to go back. Let me go back to the first line of this page. And it is the line that I just read. The imagination is literally the workshop wherein are fashioned all plans created by man. The impulse, the desire is given shape, form, and action. And here we go. This is the point I want to make during the time I have left here. Through the aid of the imaginative, and the key word I want to focus on today is faculty. Faculty. What is faculty? Can somebody Google the word faculty and put it in the chat? I'm going to do the same. Faculty. But faculty of imagination. I never saw that before. Faculty of imagination, according to Google, says, imagination, also called the faculty of imagining. Imagination, also called the faculty of imagining, is the ability of forming mental images, sensations, and concepts in a moment when they are not perceived through the spirit, through the sight, hearing, or other senses. Not perceived through the sight, hearing, or other senses. Imagination is the work of the mind that helps you to create. The imagination is the workshop of your mind that helps you to create. Now, why is that one word important? Because I took my book, and as I was preparing today, oh, I just dropped something. Every page that has faculty, I circled, underlined, and I highlighted it. Why? I want you to think about if each of you were a president of a university. What do you have? You have faculty. Now imagine that you are the president of the university of your mind, and you have a faculty that will come to your aid to deliver your desire. So I wanted to set that up as we walk through this principle, because I really want each of you to visualize and really get the point that I'm making here about your imagination. Now, I just created that out of my own imagination. Hi, Carla, Doretha. Yes, this is Solo and McNeill. Yes, Solo and McNeill today, but it's going to be exciting because I'm asking each of you to walk through your version of Think and Grow Rich that you have. Turn to the principle of, yes, imagination. And if you don't have your book, you can go to Google, or you can go online and you can pull up a PDF. I like using the version that's called Think and Grow Rich Sacred Texts. You can use whatever you want to use to walk through this principle with me, because I really want to take a step off the treadmill today. And I really want to help us understand and really look at how to make this principle live. How do you make it live for you? And I really want to, interact, and I will interact with you. So just put your comments, your questions, your thoughts, something you want me to repeat, whatever, or something you want me to share. Put it in the imagination. Put it in your imagination, but put it in the chat also. All right, but also remember, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe to the YouTube and McNeill YouTube so you will get every notification every time we come on. But also comment, like, and share this podcast. Comment, like, and share the podcast. Now, my question to you as we start is, how do you convert your desire into money? I think imagination would do that. And the other question for you is, have you discovered, do you understand and develop your imagination and how you use it in connection with achieving or accomplishing your desire? I think imagination can do that for you too. Now, we're going to go back to faculty. So through the aid of his imaginative faculty, and every time I say the word faculty, I want you to think about a staff, a university that you have at your beck and call. This university, this faculty, this team, this workshop, this is your imagination. How do you put your faculty to work to imagine how you're going to achieve your goals? All right. Now, Napoleon Hill tells us that man has conquered the air so completely that the birds are poor match for him in flying. He has harnessed the ether and made it serve as a means of instantaneous communication with any part of the world. He has analyzed and weighed the sum at a distance of millions of miles, and he has determined through the aid of imagination the elements which it consists. He has discovered that his own brain is both a broadcasting and a receiving station for the vibration of thought. Now, when I share that point, I literally need you to think about the old days, well, how far you want to go back in terms of a radio. You know, we used to have the radios separate from the TV. Imagine that your brain is receiving vibrations and it is sending vibrations. But these vibrations are thought vibrations, but they're also feelings vibrations. And I don't think we often think about how you can think of someone and they call you, or someone is thinking of you and you call them. Can you explain that? Can any of you explain that? I can't explain that. Good morning, Sherry. And good morning, Burecorp. Welcome all of you. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. We're discussing the principle of imagination. And I am reading through the principle. So if you have your book or if you want to go to Google, you can read along with me. I really think that it's very important that when we think about thinking, what is it that you desire? Napoleon Hill tells us in principle number 1, how much money do you want? That's number 1. What are you going to do in return for the money? By what date do you want the money by? Now, where's your plan? This imagination principle is what comes into play along with your mastermind group, helping you to have imaginative thoughts by which you're going to use in order to achieve the money you desire. And I don't think she would mind if I call out Gloria Riley, and I use her as an example. Gloria, is that okay with you? Just put yes in the chat, or you can put no in the chat. But since you're on here, I'd like to use you as an example. Good morning, Yolanda. Yes. Hope it's okay if I use you as an example. Gloria had a desire. She had a desire to make a certain amount of money. She provides financial services as a business, but she also had a desire to help other people understand the benefits and the power of being empowered with your finances. But she wanted to create a way and a means and a method by which to get people to an event, to listen to other people talk about money. That was her desire. She also desired to create a book where she put her thoughts in that book. Now, what did she use in that process? She used her imagination. Yes, she used her imagination. And I want each of you to just think about, how do you use your imagination in order to achieve that which you desire? I read a quote and I put it in my LinkedIn in preparing for this. And the quote said, "We do not see the world the way it is. We see the world according to our instruments. And this was Immanuel Kant. And what I thought was so powerful about that is this. Each time we read this book, each time we read this principle, we see things differently. And when we see things differently, we do different things. And I'll go back to Gloria, for example. As she began to have an idea, the idea was magnified by her imagination. She began to talk to individuals like myself and others. And as a mastermind, if you will, ideas began to emerge. She came up with the idea of where she wanted to have her event. She came up with the ideas of who she wanted to have at her event. She came up with the idea, oh, wait, maybe I should publish a book and have the book ready before I get to my event so that my book would be available, ideas. But she didn't just sit on the ideas. And this is where we go back to Kahn's quote when he says, we do not see the world the way it is. We see the world according to our instruments. When she became more connected with this principle of imagination and all the other 12 principles, she then began to take that idea and grow it and grow it and grow it until its manifestation, which was her event. Now she's planning another event, right? Now, what are you doing and how are you activating your own imagination? Napoleon Hill tells us the imaginative faculty functions in two forms. One is synthetic imagination, the other is creative imagination. And then he goes on to say that through this faculty, one may arrange old concepts, ideas, plans into new. One may arrange. Now, this is your faculty coming together to help you arrange ideas and create something new. If any of you have ever heard of Cirque du Soleil took the idea of ballet and the idea of the circus and created what we now know that's making millions of dollars, Cirque du Soleil. Yes. Put in the chat, who took the idea of taking a cell phone and putting every conceivable app you could think of to replace your TV, okay, and your radio, and created another product. So what are you thinking about that you can take an idea and take it and mix it with another idea and create a third idea, which is a combination of those two? Put that in the chat. As a matter of fact, let me check the chat and check. Good morning. No, Yolanda says no, but that happens along with friends. Yes, 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 yes. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome, Gloria. But I think that when we can see individuals that we know and we watch them go from a concept into a reality, many of you might remember Michael Baptiste. Michael Baptiste, I met him when he was a university student, and he had an idea. And the idea was, man, what more could we do with bananas? Was an idea. He lived in this book for almost 10 years. He took that idea. Oh, wait, now did we all know that that company just went public? Can you put it in the chat? Doretha Wyman, Michael Baptiste, from a college student with an idea. What could we do with bananas that's different? Make it into a smoothie. They built a business around that concept, took the idea and turned it into something that now has gone public, was sold. Two forms of imagination. The second form of imagination is creative imagination. And Napoleon Hill tells us that through the faculty of creative imagination, the finite mind of man has direct communication with infinite intelligence. It is the faculty through which hunches and inspirations are received. And it is this faculty that is the basic of new ideas that are handed over to man. This faculty of taking your hunches, your inspirations, and your ideas. And I put this book back here because I made a commitment to myself and to read through this is for our mastermind group that every day I was going to promote, yes, promote ways of how people can use ideas. So an idea that I took from this particular principle, I had a journal, just a regular composition notebook. And then I had many legal pads, just plain legal pads. And every day I would write my thoughts. I would write my hunches. I would write my inspirations. Whatever came up very early in the morning, I started writing them down. One of my favorite books is Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. And in her book, she talked about morning pages. And these are pages that you would write every morning. Well, I started that process, and about 10 years into the process, I began to realize that my journaling thoughts, my hunches, and my inspirations began to take on a life of their own. What does that mean? That means that I will first begin, and I'm still on creative imagination. And this is an example of how you can tap into your creative imagination. See, I think it's one thing for us to come and talk about imagination. What is it? But not only what is it, but how do you tap into it for yourself? And how do you use it? That's what this principle is teaching us. How do you use it in a way that is systematic, that works for you? And I can just share. Is it okay if I share? You got to put in the chat. Yes, you can share, Ann McNeill. Now, if you don't say I can share, then maybe I should not share. Okay, yes. In the chat. Jennifer, Shannon, in the chat, yes. I just want to make sure you're still there, right? So what I did was I began to realize that my thoughts, they would actually were all over the place. You know, did I lock my car? Oh, am I going to be late because it's raining? And I would just write. And then all of a sudden, a hunch, an idea, or an inspiration would come from something I've already read, something I've already listened to prior to. And the hunch was an idea. How about write what you're thankful for, Ann McNeill? So I write 2 or 3 things I'm thankful for. And then I would write the desires of my heart. And then over the years, I began to write and ask my mind and creative imagination to give me 10 ideas each day. And I would just on the sheet of paper write 1 through 10. Now, this process I'm explaining is creative imagination, how I use it to actually go from an idea, concept, to action plans and steps and vetting until the idea becomes reality. The first one I'll share with you is I had an idea as my contractor, I had an idea to connect with other women who are in the construction industry. It was just an idea. And I just wrote it down, idea, connect with other women in construction. Days later, I said, well, how can I do that? Well, why don't you just collect cards? I went through years of just nothing but just collecting business cards. And years later, as I'm still doing this exercise, I said, you know what, why don't you take some of these cards of the women who are local and invite them to lunch? Yes, just invite them to lunch. So it was a Monday. I invited some friends to lunch. They brought friends. And for over 1 year, we would meet for lunch once a month on a Monday in my office in the conference room. Now, let me fast forward 10, 12 years into the future from that idea. And many of you have ideas. I'm just trying to help you understand how I process utilizing what I call my daily date with myself. Years later, that idea has turned into what I now call the National Association of Black Women in Construction. And right now we're in 15 cities across the United States, and 2 countries have contacted us of Black women who want us to come to their country and start a chapter there. One simple idea that was creative in nature, it was a hunch, but I had to use the synthetic imagination along with my creative imagination by taking different ideas and create something that will outlive me. What are you creating that will outlive you? Maybe it's a legacy in your family. Maybe it's a company or a business that your children or grandchildren may step into. Maybe it's a fund foundation. You don't have to create it. You can just help fund it. Maybe it's a child in your church that you want to support. Maybe it's the United Way. Maybe it's UNCF. But whatever it is, when you have that hunch and that idea, what do you do with it? All right, I'm going to continue to read. Creative imagination works automatically. It works automatically. Automatic. In the manner described in subsequent pages, the faculty, here we go again with that faculty. These are your helpers, your staff, your faculty. Functions only, that is so funny. Your faculty functions only when the conscious mind is vibrating at an exceedingly rapid rate. As for example, when the conscious mind is stimulated through the emotion of a strong desire, and this is why Napoleon Hill tells us in the principle of desire, your desire must be so strong that it is a burning desire, burning desire. When I had that idea initially, it was not a burning desire, it was just an idea. And then it turned into a desire. And then it turned into actions with strategies and other people. And now it is a very active, if you will, organization that is changing lives. But more importantly, it would change the lives of Black girls who are yet unborn, who desire to go into the construction industry, all because of it becoming a strong burning desire. What about you? What is it that you desire so strongly that you are willing? Early in the morning, you're up, you're at it. Late at night, you're at it. All during the day, you're thinking about what can I do differently? I tried that, it did not work. Burning desire. The creative faculty becomes more alert, more receptive to vibrations from the sources mentioned in proportion to its development through use. And I thought was so interesting about this is that your faculty in your university, if they don't work, nothing happens. That's where the use comes in. It is the same with your mind and your creative imagination. If you don't use it, it is not going to work for you. And I think that it's interesting how the author tells us, and I'll say it again, he said, the creative faculty becomes more alert, more receptive to vibrations from sources mentioned. And I say, going back to my example, I'll use Gloria as an example, go back to her example. When she began to bring these people together, the vibrations of thoughts from other people created a stronger and more burning desire for her to elevate and elevate and elevate. Why? It wasn't so much the money much as it was her desire to create a better product by which to draw people to her event to learn more about becoming more financially empowered, not literacy, but empowerment. When my hunch turned into a desire from the idea of Black women in construction, if I don't wake up tomorrow, there are people who will continue with that idea. Why? Because it was not about the money. It was about the desire and the vibrations that began to come to me from other people, other sources, and realizing the need for this idea. Never thought about quitting. Never, never. The author says, he goes on to say, keep in mind as you follow these principles, the entire story of how one may convert a desire into money cannot be told in one statement. The story will be complete only when you have mastered, comma, assimilated, comma, and began to make use of all these principles. And let me check in with you again. Yolanda said, I'm so glad you had Thank you, Yolanda. She says, I'm so glad you had that idea. A wonderful, yes, as a matter of fact, if I had not had that idea, I would have never met you, Yolanda. MY Powerful. What are you creating to outlive you? Thank you so much. And really, that is the crux of the when you think about the creator, he made us to be creative, but not for ourselves, but in the spirit of service to others. Can I say that again? The creator was not selfish. He was not selfish when he made us in his image. The creator made us to be creative, but not for ourselves, but to duplicate him by creating from our ideas and our hunches and our inspirations something that's going to benefit the lives and livelihoods of others. But what are you creating that will outlive you? Thank you for that comment. Napoleon Hill says that, when you keep in mind that you got to master, assimilate, and begin to make use of these principles. And then he goes on to share that the great leaders of business, industry, finance, and the great artists, musicians, poets, and writers became great because they developed, here we go with that word again, the faculty of creative imagination. And I want to go back to the faculty again. Just use your imagination. And every time you hear the word faculty from now on, you're going to think of me. And you're going to think of all of those faculties that's going on in your mind that's helping you to create ideas. But are your ideas stillborn? Somebody put that in the chat for me. Are your ideas stillborn? Do you have a place to write your ideas? I would recommend you get a copy of my book. It is called A Daily Date with Myself, and it is a daily journal. And in the journal, you can write your ideas. You can write the desires of your heart, any journal, ideas, thoughts, opportunities, your lessons learned. What are you thankful for, and what are you desiring? You can put a date, you can date it, the time and the location. But where are you documenting and journaling your own ideas? He goes on to say, desire is only a thought. It is only an impulse. But just think about that. Whatever it is you're desiring, I like to say it is desiring you. But at the end of the day, when you really think about your desire, it's only a thought. It's only an impulse. It is nebulous and ethereal. It is abstract and it has no value until it has been transformed into its physical counterpart. It has no value. Just think about that. Your desire has no value until you convert it and transform it. I like to say transmute it into a physical counterpart. While the synthetic imagination is the one which will be used most frequently in the process of transforming the impulse of desire into money, you must keep in mind the fact that you may face circumstances and situations which demand the use of creative imagination as well. And I'd like for each of you to put in the chat, how do you tap into your own creative imagination? How do you do that? How do you tap into your own creative imagination? Now let me check. Let me check the chat. Let's check the chat. Thank you, Sherry Rudolph. Say speaking. Now, thank you, Jennifer. Are your ideas stillborn? And many of us own businesses. Many of us own businesses and we have ideas for the business, but what happens next? Jennifer says, it is only energy until, yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Jennifer. But I want each of you, now I'm gonna call you out. Yes, it's just us on here today. Yes, it's just us. Gloria, Yolanda, Wyman, Jennifer, Sherry, Doretha, all of you in the chat. How do you tap into your imagination? Laura Jackson, Diane Flowers, Shannon, Carla. How do you tap into your creative imagination? How do you tap into your creative imagination? Can you share? How do you tap into your creative imagination? I'm going to give you a moment to think about that. And I'm going to ask you to, while you're thinking about it, just give me one idea in the chat. While you're doing that, I'm going to share the 13 principles, which will give us an idea of all of these principles together and how they connect to each other. So if you take a moment, all right, take a moment and think about your creative imagination. How do you, yes, take that. How do you take your creative imagination and activate it? How do you tap into that, right? How do you tap into your own creative imagination? And I am going to share maybe.
Number one is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step two is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step three is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number four is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number five is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially, what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now, in the chat has been very, 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 very active. So let's go to see what everybody is saying. All right. Now, thank you, everybody that participated in that. We're talking about how do you tap into your creative imagination. I'll start with Wyman. Wyman says, all ideas are stillborn. We must combine a burning desire and increase the vibration of our thought in order for them to live and take on a tangible form. Carla, thank you. Thank you, Wyman. Carla says, a period of quiet time and then documenting what comes up for me. Thank you. Carla, can you put in the chat, what time of day do you actually do that? What time of day? Just put in the chat. Sherry Rudolph says, think about how I want to help a person or community. Sherry, thank you so much. Can you put in the chat, Sherry, just an idea? And we're gonna, if we get to it, I don't know if we're gonna have time. Oh my time. I don't know if we're gonna have time. But I want you to think about the two stories in the book and think about what you would do and actually write it out. So in other words, do that before you meet the person. So once you meet the person, your imagination has already given you the ideas on how you're going to help that person. Maybe you're going to give them a copy of this book. Can you imagine if you help them change their mind, what the rest of their life would look like? Yolanda says, my creative imagination is always running and spinning, especially when things get quiet around me. And Yolanda, I would really encourage you, if you don't mind, just keep writing, because what will eventually happen is that the mind will begin to settle because you're emptying those thoughts and those emotions onto the page. And I'd also encourage you, if you don't have a copy, consider getting a copy of Judy Cameron's book, The Artist's Way. Doretha says, my morning routine using autosuggestion. So Doretha, share. Can you share? Put in the chat. What does that morning routine look like? I'll share my morning routine if anybody's interested. That might be for another podcast because it may take a while. But anyway, Sherry, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My imagination is always running on high. Mostly it is triggered by ideas that I have. Yes, Sherry, write them down. Keep you an idea. Get my book, Sherry. Get a copy of A Daily Date with Myself. You can get it on you can get it anywhere, right? Just go online, you can get it. You can go to my website and you can get it. Jennifer, share it again, Jennifer. Laura just gives us a thumbs up. Speaking of a thumbs up, Laura, thank you for that. Can you make sure you click that bell on YouTube and like this podcast and also share it because it helps us to promote this message for others. Jason Murray says, quiet time thinking of how I can empower others to build businesses and manage money. Thank you so very much for that, Jason. And I think you know that three ideas in that one statement. You want to empower others, that's one. You want to help build businesses, that's two. And then you want to help them manage money. That is, thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Sherry. That is number three. I am almost out of time, but I would like to, uh, I guess I need to skip down. I don't, listen, our co-hosts will be back next week. At least one of them will be back next week. And I think as we can see, we have not really scratched the surface of this concept. We've not even scratched the surface. I'm reading this book, another book. It's entitled The Master Key System. And what it is doing for me is helping me to really think about how do I think? How do I think? It is a series of courses, and it's actually one of the books that Napoleon Hill wrote. Is read, and it's in 24 parts. Everything that I'm reading, I'm realizing that, and I talked about this on a panel I was on yesterday. This is my workbook. It's called How to Start and Run a Successful Mastermind Group. You can use it as a single workbook for yourself, but I will warn you. Yes, I use the word warning, and Doretha can attest to this. If you want to achieve your goals, be accountable. Be accountable to someone else, but use a proven system. The reason I say I will warn you is because this process will track your everyday. And sometimes, and I'll confess, sometimes we don't want to be held that tightly accountable. Sometimes. This is a daily tracking of your goals. And these are just some of my pages, as you can see here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a place for you to write your goals, but then what action are you going to take each and every day? Coming back to the imagination principle, I imagined from all of the sheets and pages and documents that I had created, I imagined a process that would help other individuals to achieve their goals by having a process to take your imagination. What's step number one? You write it down. What's step number two? You review it with some additional ideas. And in step number three, you begin to write a plan. Step number four, align yourself, like Napoleon Hill says, with a mastermind group of accountability. You share your ideas, they share their ideas. And as you look at your goals, they help you, you help them. And before you know it, inch by inch, yard by yard, it's not hard. It really is not as hard as we may think. And I will continue. I want to just check the YouTube again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Laura says, Anne, have you considered doing a book study similar? You know what, Laura? You know, I didn't read this before I read that. This has been great and very informative and motivational. Okay, I have been challenged and charged. I take the charge. We'll talk about it offline. Laura Jackson, thank you for the idea. The idea, thank you. Doretha says her morning routine includes reading, scripture, prayer, self-confidence formula, writing in my journal, especially scroll number 10. Yes, scroll number 10. The scroll number 10 prayer. And by the way, Doretha is a part of my Clarity Mastermind. And if any of you are interested, if you have never been before, because some of you have been, but if you've never been before and you'd like to connect with us as a part of the Clarity Mastermind, you can go to annmcneill.com and register. We will be meeting this Tuesday, which is next week. And if you listen to this in the future, you can still go to my website and register. Okay. MY says to assist Miss Ann, please be sure to give this video thumbs up. We only have 2 thumbs up. Oh, and 20 people watching. Thank you, MY. Thank you for that. You see what she said? Please support this effort. And if you're interested in connecting after we finish here, just text the number 59925. And in the chat, just put the word and, ANN. Text the number 59925. Android phone, whatever phone you have. Yes. I don't know. I don't think that the wall phone will work. But anyway, you know the point. Text the number 59925 and let's put that in the chat. Somebody can put that in the chat for me. I'm multitasking and I hope I'm doing okay today since this is new for me. I think it's like maybe the second time I've done this. But Laura Jackson, I want to come back to you. I have had a number of people to ask me to do that, and thank you for being led by the Spirit, because this is how I help people. Yes. So yes, I will definitely give that a considerable amount of thought to do that. I'm the one. I'm interested in mastermind. Thank you. O'Shea, thank you for joining. We're going to go ahead and plan to wrap up. We do have an annual meeting coming, and the annual meeting for your life. This is not a conference. No, 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 no. It's not a conference. It is an annual meeting for your life. And this annual meeting for your life is going to be held in Boca Raton. And it is on May the 2nd and, excuse me, not May. It is January 2025, the 3rd and the 4th. January 2025, the 3rd and the 4th. So if you are interested in participating with us for our Think and Grow Rich annual meeting for your life, you can join us at our annual meeting in Boca Raton 2025. And it will be, just think about yourself as a publicly traded corporation. On an annual basis, you have to give your shareholders an annual report. Now that's for your portfolio. We're going to ask you to create an annual report for your life. We give you a template, we give you the questions, we give you the forms. All you have to do is just say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. 10 questions, and they're all in this book. You can prepare before you come, but I will tell you, it is work. But so is living, and so is life. It's a lot of work if you really stop and think about it. I'm going to prepare to wrap up. If there are any questions of me, and Laura, I really like that question. Jason says, always an empowering experience joining in on Saturday. Thank you, Jason. Laura says, count me in. And Jennifer says, each time has been powerful. Thank you, everybody. My desire today, we could have played a replay. And when I got the message that I would be by myself, it was not even a question about playing a replay, because this is how I grow, but it's also how I add value to you on this journey of creativity, on this journey of imagination, on this journey of growing when it's not easy. No, 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 it's not easy. And I think all of you know that, when you serve above yourself, doesn't have to be easy. You just do it in the spirit of service, not expecting anything in return. And I think that might have been a challenge that I had with promoting and self-promoting all of my books. I have 6 or 7 books right now. And I think for my own breakthrough, someone said this to me, and it got me out of this place I was about not being willing to share because of what people think. Someone said to me recently, they said, "Ann, just imagine," they were a little upset with me because I did not tell them about the workbook and how their life could have been very, very different if they knew about this work I do. It's like Laura saying, Ms. Jackson saying, have you thought about doing a book study? I had not. People have asked me, but I did this instead. The person said, and imagine that you have a family member, a friend, a coworker that had an incurable disease. And nobody had the antidote but you. You had the antidote to cure that disease, and you did not share it. How would you feel? How would they feel? They said we. How would we feel if we found out? And I get chills just to relive that moment when they shared that with me. I have been in this book since 1979, every single week, 5 businesses. My MCO construction company, first Black female in the construction business, operating at the level that we do, focusing on billion-dollar programs, not projects, programs. I started MCO Consulting, where I do outreach, monitoring, and consulting for publicly traded companies that work in the public sector, billion-dollar companies. I have a speaking business called Constructively Speaking, where I speak to share these concepts as I elevate women to the next level. The International Mastermind Association, which creates this platform that we're on now, utilizing the book Think and Grow Rich. And then the National Association of Black Women in Construction. All those are creative ideas from my imagination. And I have the formula, I have that cure that can help that disease my friend shared with me. And so my desire is to not have any excuses, but to just keep showing up, whether somebody's here or not, or whether everybody's here, but to keep showing up and to be my very best that God has called me to be. And so with those thoughts and those ideas, I'm going to bid all of you farewell. And I'm going to ask you to continue to pray for me as I do pray for you also, but continue to think and grow richer as you continue to create your own process or utilize the process that I've created. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but find a process that works for you. But be willing to have a dream in order to have a dream come true. Sit on that for one moment. I cannot have a dream come true if I don't first have a dream. What is your dream? What is your desire? You have to give your imagination something to work on, something to work with, something to work for. And if you don't do that, you cannot exercise the muscle called synthetic imagination or creative imagination to have a better quality of life for you and your family. And until next time, think and grow richer, and I will see you next Saturday. All right. Everybody have a great day. And I am going to discontinue this podcast. All right. Thank you, everybody.